It's quite a thing to watch the 45th president of the United States of America and his family make threats towards a sitting judge and that judge's family because the former president is now a criminal defendant facing trial in the Manhattan criminal courts. It is an appalling spectacle, as are Donald Trump's calls for violence. Now, the good news is the American people will reject this extremism. And the fact that the Republican Party has been unable to escape it and has instead lashed itself to Donald Trump will be their doom in 2024. One of the greatest political mistakes and misjudgments in American history is going to turn out to be Kevin McCarthy's calculation that he needed Donald Trump. His rehabilitation of Donald Trump by standing next to him at Mar-a-Lago weeks after the insurrection will be remembered as that moment where Donald Trump became an inescapable black hole for the Republican Party. What is wrong with the whole of a political party that among its elected governors, members of the House of Representatives, and the United States Senate, there are none among them who will stand up and challenge Donald Trump, who will challenge his threats to violence, who will challenge his name calling, his indecency, his incompetence. Why, to a person, is there such cowardice? Because when the cameras are turned off, many of them state clearly and directly what they know to be true, that Donald Trump will shackle them to defeat in 2024. And that is certainly what is going to happen. Evidence of that, of course, played out in the state of Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the extremist Supreme Court candidate was badly defeated, and the turnout surged. That's what's going to happen in 2024. People who haven't voted before are going to have to be reached and turned out. There's going to have to be organizing that says to people all over the country that you have a stake in this fight. What happens in America matters. What you can do is vote. And through that vote, repudiate the madness. And it is madness in front of us, and cowardice. Donald Trump has been crazy for 8 years. But what has fertilized that craziness is the cowardice of an entire class of politicians that simply refuse to confront what they know to be wrong, waiting instead for the first person somewhere, at some place, at some time, to be the first to step forward. They'll get behind that person. But the thing is, that person isn't there. That person won't step forward. So Trump remains safe from challenge, safe from condemnation, as everyone waits for the first person to step forward and do it 8 years after he descended the escalator in Trump Tower and debased, degraded, and defiled American politics. The election ahead has Donald Trump far outpacing any of his opponents. But all of those opponents were characters on Trump's reality political show. Every one of them had a starring role for at least a little while. Every one of them is tainted. Every one of them is a smaller version of Trump, who looked awfully small sitting in that courtroom, photographed between his lawyers, helpless, at least for a moment. Donald Trump wants power. He refuses to walk away and accept with humility his defeat at the hands of the American people. He's incapable of processing his time in office as the greatest honor that his fellow citizens could ever hand any person. Instead, he feels aggrieved and he's angry, and his loss must be a conspiracy. So he has invented an alternate reality, and he's lied about it tens and tens and tens of thousands of times and been supported by a television network that has similarly lied about it tens and tens of thousands of times. And those lies have landed and fertilized a garden of extremism. Extremist and violent groups like the Three Percenters and the Proud Boys, militia groups, neo-Nazis, they all exult in the Trump movement because the Trump movement brought them legitimacy. Donald Trump invited them to sit at the table openly. And what is left is a giant disaster for the rest of American society to clean up and deal with. And it will take a long time. The American economy is worsening. It appears we are heading into a recession. And that makes this election a dangerous one because it means the American people could become susceptible to the lies of a demagogue like Trump. Trump will say, remember when I was president, the economy was great. Now, that isn't true, but people have short memories. In the months ahead, Donald Trump will try to impose a vision of his delusion as reality, just as he tried to say that the picture of him standing in front of a much smaller crowd on his inauguration than did Barack Obama was in fact larger than the Obama crowd size. Resistance to that delusion will become absolutely necessary if American democracy is to be defended and saved. American democracy can't survive in a cauldron of threats and intimations of violence and demands that elections are legitimate only if my side wins. Donald Trump has poisoned faith and belief in American democracy for millions of people, and he has put forward a proposition that cannot be compromised with, that's unavoidable. He has said, I'm in power or else. And the only appropriate American response to that is no. And because it's no, it means that this must be defeated at the ballot box. And the challenge ahead will be exciting and invigorating millions of Americans to defend a democracy that in the abstract has become a failing system of government for so many of them. This moment requires a vision of optimism, a spirit of magnanimity, of humility, and the pragmatism to understand the way to defeat extremism is to unite people around a noble idea. And the most noble idea there has ever been is the idea of the United States, a country where all people are created equal, endowed by a creator with inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.